Hello, my name is Amina and I'm your decision making specialist. I have a client and he came to me because he was having a really hard time. When he was very young, his grandmother and his grandfather died. This was before COVID, and he has remembered them ever since. The thing is, he has remembered them with the sadness of their dying, and that they died so closely together, and that with his grandfather, he couldn't be there with him when he died. With his grandmother, he was. And they both kind of have that equal sadness. One, he couldn't be there. That was horrible and sad for him. The other, he was there, and that was horrible and sad for him. And yesterday, he started talking about them. Only this time, it was different. He started telling me about his grandmother's cherry pie. And he started telling me about his grandfather that had planted that cherry tree when he and his new bride, the gentleman's beautiful new bride, he said, got married and moved to this little farm. And they were so happy about that cherry tree. And they decided that that cherry tree was going to represent their marriage. And it did. The cherry tree flourished, and it had some times when it lost leaves, or it looked like it wasn't sure it was going to make it, and it did, and it produced cherries. And my client yesterday started telling me that story, and he told me about the cherry pie, and they figured out how his grandmother made it, and that is she put a pinch of cinnamon in it. He said, I was too little to know how she did it. He said, I just know that I would try to make cherry pie. I would buy cherry pie. I would read recipes, and I never could recreate that memory. Yesterday, he did. And he told me about the cherry tree. And he told me other stories about his grandmother and other stories about his grandfather. And this time the difference is they weren't the sad stories. They were the happy stories. And what we talked about was that if we hang on, the sad stories shifted. And as the sad stories came out, and he talked about them, and he felt them, and he wished they weren't there, that he had pushed down the sad stories because they hurt so much. And then what he discovered is he just kept walking through story after story of the sadness. He came out, and there he found that he had pushed away the good stories along with the sad. If you're missing somebody for any reason whatsoever, just know there is no specific timeline. There's no direct route there is nothing except the faith of knowing that one day that sadness will open up the door for the good parts. And the sadness about the death and that he couldn't see his grandfather, he did his grandmother, and that doesn't go away. What happens is that we cannot have two thoughts, sad, happy, at the same time too. So what he realized yesterday, he was so glad that he didn't turn his back on the sadness, because he would have missed out on the happy stories. And he said, he said, they come in little pieces, and sometimes there'll be a big piece and then there'll be a little one. And he said, each one is so wonderful to me. And he looked and he said, I know this may sound silly. He said, I can feel them. And you know what else he said? I was always afraid they wouldn't be proud of me. And I think they will. I think they are. And that is part of that journey and part of the story of this gentleman and his grandmother and grandfather. So there's no really such thing as, a good death in every sense of the way. There are the good memories that stay no matter what. So when you have some sadness, I'm not saying that you pretend like it's not there. I'm not saying that you just look at it and say, oh gosh, I'm really glad I got the sadness because maybe the good stuff will come. Nah. The bad, not so wonderful feelings and memories are real, and they hurt and they sting and they tug at you. And then at some moment when we don't know, a good memory comes, a happy memory. The aroma of a freshly baked cherry pie with the eyelash hint of cinnamon picked from a tree planted at a marriage. Watch, smell for your cherry pie with a touch of cinnamon. It's there. It will come. Hang on and have faith that will be added to your story too. Meanwhile, always keep yourself safe so that you have as many wonderful memories as possible, and keep everyone around you as safe as possible too, so that they can add wonderful memories to their story. All right, thank you for coming. I really appreciate you, and you're always welcome. And meanwhile, as always, bye for now.